Hi, Bruno here. Welcome to Spainguru. Spanish non-lucrative visa requirements 2023. So let's go through this very extensive topic and make sure to go to the link in the video description below to check the article because we will be adding new things all the time. This is an ever-changing topic. Now let's go with it. As previously mentioned in other news and articles on Spainguru, in order to obtain a temporary residence permit in Spain without engaging in work or professional activities, foreign applicants must fulfill several requirements. In this article and video, we will focus on listing each of the requirements that must be met for a successful application for the Spanish non-lucrative residence permit, also known as Spanish NLV. Make sure to join our dedicated Facebook group community for Spanish non-lucrative visa with more than 2,000 members as of mid-March 2023, and our weekly newsletter that features lots of new content every week. Every Monday morning at 10:15 a.m. we send a newsletter featuring at least 9 pieces of content. Now let's go with it. Lists of requirements to apply for the non-lucrative visa residence permit. The requirements that must be met are A. Not being illegally in Spain territory. B. In the event that the applicant is of legal age, which is 18 years plus in Spain, lack of criminal records in Spain and in the previous countries where they have resided during the last 5 years for crimes that are described in the Spanish law. C. Not appear as rejectable in the territorial space of countries with which Spain has signed an agreement in this sense. D. Have sufficient financial means to meet their maintenance and subsistence expenses, including, where appropriate, those of their family during the period of time for which they wish to reside in Spain. All this without the need to develop any work or professional activity in accordance with the provisions of the section. Check out the article, Is it possible to work remotely on a non-lucrative visa in Spain in 2023? It is a very juicy article that actually tells you that yes, it is possible to work from Spanish territory remotely for companies that are abroad, that are outside of Spain, and there's actually a Supreme Court decision about this. But of course, when you apply on Spanish consulates, you should not mention this, and you should be able to prove that you don't have to work, but the fact that you do it later on after you have gotten the visa and enter Spain, that is absolutely possible and it is legal. Okay? Check the article for that and you can find the link in the video description below. E. Have public insurance or private health insurance arranged with an insurance entity authorized to operate in Spain. And of course, on Spainguru, you can get your fully compliant health insurance for the non-lucrative visa. We offer Adeslas, which is the top health insurance company that is compliant with all the requirements for any Spanish visa. F. Not being, where appropriate, within the commitment period of non-return to Spain that the foreigner has assumed when returning voluntarily to his origin country. And G. Not suffer from any of the diseases that may have serious public health repercussions in accordance with the provisions of the International Health Regulations of 2005. And this is a medical certificate that you can get actually fully online. Here, if you go to Spainguru, you will also be able to get it, and the 2005 list of diseases are diseases that are like yellow fever, etc., etc. And H, last one, having paid a fee for the processing of the procedure. Financial means to prove to obtain a temporary residence permit. Foreigners who wish to reside in Spain without carrying out work or lucrative activity must have sufficient financial means for the period of residence they request, or prove a source of periodic income for themselves and, where appropriate, as we said, their family in the following amounts, which are established as minimums and refer to the time of the visa application or authorization renewal. Now let's see those amounts. A. For their support during their residence in Spain, an amount that represents 400% of the IPREM monthly in euros or its legal equivalent in foreign currency. Where is the IPREM? The IPREM is the index that sets the quantity needed to apply and renew the Spanish non-lucrative visa, and you can find a link to it in this article as well, and also in the video description below. B. For the support of each of the family members under their care during the residence in Spain, an amount that represents 100% of the IPREM monthly in euros or its legal equivalent in foreign currency. Amount to be credited in addition to that referred to in section A above. In both cases, the global amount of economic means must assume the disposition of the monthly amount calculated based on the provisions of the previous section, in relation to the validity period of the requested authorization. The availability of sufficient economic means will be accredited by presenting the documentation that allows verifying the perception of periodic and sufficient income, or the possession of a patrimony or savings that guarantee said perception of income. The availability may be accredited by any means of evidence admitted by law. This includes the contribution of title deeds, certified checks, or credit cards. They must be accompanied by a bank certification or statement that certifies the amount available as credit of said card. If the economic means come from shares or participations in Spanish, mixed or foreign companies located in Spain, the interested party will accredit, through certification thereof, that he or she does not carry out any work activity in said companies. It will be needed to submit an affidavit to that effect. Now, what about the non-lucrative visa application procedure? The foreigner who wishes to temporarily reside in Spain without carrying out work or professional activities must personally request the corresponding visa, according to the official form. The application for the non-lucrative residence permit must be submitted at the Spanish embassy or consulate in the applicant's place of residence. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation, if there is a justifiable cause, may determine another diplomatic mission or consular office in which it is appropriate to submit the request, and here you can find which Spanish consulate you should go if you live in the US and in the UK, as it depends on your place of residence where you are located, which Spanish consulate corresponds to you to start this application. The request to apply must be accompanied by A. Valid passport or travel document recognized as valid in Spain with a minimum validity of 1 year. B. A criminal record certificate or equivalent document in the case of applicants of criminal age issued by the authorities of the country of origin or of the country or countries in which they have resided during the last 5 years, and that certifies compliance with the requirements set forth on Section B of Article 46, and actually here you can find the link to the Extranjería regulation, okay, or aliens law regulation, where you can see all the legal text, and of course it's all in Spanish, but you can use Google Translate if you want to see the source of the law. And let's give some examples. For example, for the US, you will need a FBI background check, duly apostilled with federal apostille of the Department of State and translated by Spanish sworn translator. For the UK, an ACRO certificate, for the apostille them and translate them by Spanish sworn translators. And if you need UK apostilles, you can get discounts here on Spainguru. You can find the links here and also on the top menu. And of course, you can also find Spanish sworn translators if you need and to get a non-binding quote for your translations. Now, check out our articles about how to get FBI background check in 2 weeks instead of 6, and how long does it take to obtain a UK ACRO police check certificate and how to obtain it. Letter C. Documents proving compliance with the requirements set forth in sections D and E of the Article 46 of the Extranjería regulation. That is, that the applicant must have enough financial resources to cover their living expenses and those of their family, if applicable, during their intended stay in Spain without the need to work or engage in any professional activity. Additionally, they must have public or private health insurance from an authorized entity operating in Spain. D. Medical certificate, as we said, proving compliance with the requirements set forth in Section G of Article 46. Applicants must provide a medical certificate issued by a licensed physician stating that the applicant does not have any illness that may pose a threat to public health in accordance to the International Health Regulation of 2005. This certificate must be issued within 90 days prior to the submission of the visa application. And of course, you can use a local doctor, okay? For example, if you're in the US, you can use your medical practitioner in the US, or in the UK you can use a doctor from the UK. But of course, if you use a template that is only in English, you will need to translate that template, of course, and you will need, normally, depending on the consulate and the country where you are, you will need to also apostille. Or you can use a Spanish doctor, and you can do this fully online. As we said, here on Spainguru, you go to the top menu, you can get this certificate fully online, and you don't need to translate it nor to apostille, because this is done by a registered Spanish doctor. And of course, when you present this document into the Spanish consulate, they accept it Once the application has been submitted, it will be recorded in the visa system of the corresponding application so that the government delegation or subdelegation in whose demarcation the foreigner has proof of the submitted application, as well as the documentation that accompanies it requests residence regarding the requirements that corresponds to access. The government delegation or subdelegation, within a maximum period of 1 month from the receipt of the application, will resolve the granting or refusal of the residence permit. And of course here you need to be a bit flexible. There are stories of people who of course have waited longer to get that decision on your procedure. It will do so after assessing compliance with the requirements set forth in Section F of Article 46, as well as the set forth in Section B regarding the lack of criminal record in Spain. For these purposes, it will automatically request the report of the competent services of the General Directorate of the Police and the Guardia Civil, or Civil Guard, in matters of security and public order, as well as that of the Central Registry of Convicts in Spain. The government delegation or subdelegation will record the resolution in the corresponding application for its knowledge by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation and by the corresponding consular office or diplomatic mission. The validity of the non-lucrative visa residence authorization will depend on the issuance of a visa if required and the actual entry of the foreign applicant into the Spanish territory. If the resolution is unfavorable, if it's not communicated within a month, the diplomatic mission or consular office will notify the resolution. Likewise, the diplomatic mission or consular office will resolve the file of the procedure related to the visa. So basically, they will check that you comply with every single part, every single paragraph in the article of the regulation of the law. The visa will be denied: A. When the compliance with the requirements set forth in Article 46 is not accredited, the assessment of which corresponds to the diplomatic mission or consular office. B. When to substantiate the visa request, false documents or inaccurate allegations have been presented or there is bad faith. C. When there is a legally provided cause of inadmissibility for processing that had not been appreciated at the time of receipt of the application. Notify where appropriate the granting of the visa, the applicant must collect it personally within a month. Personally, remember that. In case of not doing so, it will be understood that the interested party has renounced the visa granted and the procedure will be archived. Once the visa has been collected, the applicant must enter Spanish territory in accordance with the provision of Title I within the validity period of the visa, which in no case shall exceed 3 months or 90 days. Once you have entered Spain, you must apply in person within 1 month at the immigration office or police station for the foreigner identity card or TIE, Tarjeta de Identificación de Extranjero. Said card will be issued for the period of validity of the temporary residence authorization and will be withdrawn by the foreigner applicant. Consulate variations and requirements. Pay attention to this. Regrettably, each consulate has its own interpretation of the Spanish non-lucrative visa application regulations. As a result, the requirements they demand may differ significantly from one another. Here are some examples of Spainguru community members that have asked a lot of questions about whether this is something, that their specific consulate is asking for them, and this is something that actually applies to all the consulates, or something specific for their consulates. For example, here, is proof of enrollment of private school for minor children required when applying for an LV application at the consulate? This was a question for Houston Consulate, actually. Or, does having a mortgage negatively impact the application for a non-lucrative visa in Chicago or New York? We know that, for example, in Los Angeles or San Francisco, this could be a problem. Next one, are passport always held during the non-lucrative visa process? And we said, for example, that in London, they always hold your passports, okay? And you cannot travel while you are applying for the Spanish non-lucrative visa, but we heard that in Manchester, they give you the option to either leave it at the consulate or take it with you, so you could actually come back to Spain, spend some time until they notify you that you can pick up the non-lucrative visa, okay, so you could travel back to the UK. Stay informed with the requirements of the particular consulate. Make sure to join Spainguru's Spanish non-lucrative visa Facebook group with, as we said, more than 2,000 members as of March 2023. And of course, you can read specifically the experience of Spainguru community members at the different Spanish consulates that they have applied for a Spanish non-lucrative visa. For example, we have stories about New York City, Washington DC, Los Angeles, Chicago, San Francisco, Boston, London, a couple of London applications. So it is very interesting that you read these stories because they give you really good tips and tricks so that you get your Spanish non-lucrative visa easy and quick, hopefully. Now, the effects of the visa and duration of the initial residence authorization. The issued visa will incorporate the initial authorization of residence. Its validity will begin from the date of entry into Spain. This must necessarily appear in the passport or travel documents. The initial authorization of temporary residence will last for 1 year. And also there are articles about this that I probably will need to add to this article, because there are people who enter Spain driving with their cars and they don't get a stamp in their passport. So what happens with that? Do they need a certificate to prove that they have entered on a specific date? And that's something that the police can provide. The non-lucrative residence renewal. Foreigners who wish to renew their temporary residence authorization must apply for the competent immigration office or Oficina de Extranjería for processing during the 60 calendar days prior to the expiration date of their authorization, which was initially for 1 year from the day of entry in Spain. Submitting the application within this period extends the validity of the previous authorization until the resolution of the procedure. It will also be extended until the resolution of the procedure in the event that the request is submitted within 90 calendar days after the date in which the validity of the previous authorization had ended, without prejudice to the initiation of the corresponding sanctioning procedure for the overstay infringement. And you can check out our dedicated article for the Spanish non-lucrative visa renewal process in 2023. For the renewal of the non-lucrative temporary residence permit, the applicant foreigner must meet the following requirements. So first, at the consulate, you will apply for a Spanish non-lucrative visa that is valid for 90 days with the sole purpose of entering Spain, okay? So you have 90 days to enter Spain, and once you enter Spain, you have 1 month to get your foreigner's card or TIE, okay? That TIE will mean that it is no longer a visa. The visa is what you get in the passport, okay? But when you get the tarjeta de extranjero or foreigner's card, that's a residence card, okay? That is valid for a year, okay? So that is called residence. It's a temporary residence, a non-lucrative residence. So it's important to make the difference between when you get a visa in the consulate with the sole purpose of entering Spain versus once you are in Spain, you will have the non-lucrative temporary residence that you can renew after that year with on periods of 2 years, no? So year 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, and eventually if you want to stay in Spain longer, after year 5 you could potentially apply for a permanent residence card, and of course in the meantime you could change potentially to other kinds of residence cards and obtain work permits, but that's another story. Now let's see. A. Be the holder of a valid non-lucrative residence authorization, or B. within 90 calendar days after its expiration. B. Have sufficient financial means to meet their living and subsistence expenses, including where appropriate those of their family, during the period of time for which the renewal corresponds, without the need to carry out any work or professional activity in the terms established in Article 47. And here you have a link to the article and video about how much money or how much income, how much savings you need to prove when you renew your Spanish non-lucrative visa. And it is a very tricky answer because it depends on every province in Spain. Just pay attention to that. I highly recommend you that you watch that video just to understand how tricky things can be here in Spain. Letter C. Have public insurance or private health insurance arranged within an insurance company authorized to operate in Spain, as we said. D. Have minors in their care of compulsory school age enrolled during their stay in Spain. E. Having paid the fee for processing the procedure. The application in an official model must be accompanied by documentation proving that the requirements indicated in the previous section are met, among others. A. Copy of the complete valid passport or travel documents, all pages, even the empty ones, recognized as valid in Spain. B. The documents that prove the economic resources of the economic means sufficient to meet their living and subsistence expenses, as well as health insurance during the time for which the residence is intended to be renewed without carrying out work or professional activity. Check out our article, How many months of bank statements are needed for Spanish non-lucrative visa renewal process. Letter C. Where appropriate, a report by the competent regional authorities certifying the schooling of minors of compulsory school age who are in their charge. And this is something specific to Spain, because in Spain it is compulsory to send your kids to school. It's not like, for example, in the US, where you could potentially homeschool them. In the event that, based on the documentation submitted together with the application, the schooling of minors of compulsory school age who are in charge of the applicant is not accredited, the Immigration Office will inform the competent educational authorities of this circumstance. It will expressly warn the foreign applicant in writing that if schooling does not take place and the corresponding report is submitted within 30 days, the authorization will not be renewed. The renewed temporary residence authorization will be valid for 2 years, as we said, unless it's appropriate to obtain a long-term or long-term residence permit EU, which, as we said, is after you have legally resided in Spain for 5 years. The resolution will be notified to the interested applicant. If the administration does not resolve within 3 months for the submission of the application, it will be understood that the resolution is favorable. From the notification of the resolution of renewal, its holder must request the renewal of the foreigner identity card or TIE within a period of 1 month. And as we said, make sure to check this article every now and then, because we will be adding new stuff, new links, new content, because this is a very extensive topic, probably the topic that is most spoken about here at Spainguru. Make sure to, if you're applying from a Spanish consulate, to make sure to understand the specific interpretations of the regulations of that consulate, as they vary significantly and they can have a strong impact in the documents that you supply. For that, as we said, join the Spainguru dedicated Spanish non-lucrative visa Facebook group with more than 2,000 members, and post your questions. You can do it anonymously. It is very interesting that you do it, because you will get the feedback from other Spainguru community members that are in your situation or have been and were successful to obtain their visas, applications, or renewals in that case. And if you need expert professional advice, you can just go to spainguru.es and go to the top menu. There you will find immigration experts, relocation agencies, tax advisors, sworn translators, and health insurances for applications of all the Spanish visas, like non-lucrative visa, golden visa, student visa, digital nomad visa, also medical certificates and travel health insurances. Last but not least, I highly recommend you to join our weekly newsletter that we send every single Monday morning, with tons of information, questions and answers, featured blog posts, featured news, and also videos from our YouTube channel. Thank you very much for watching.